Hello and welcome. My name's Thomas, and in this episode we'll be looking at challenge number 7, getting access to the steam tunnels. So in the past episode we actually opened up access to the dorm, so let's head on in and let's go talk to one of the elves who can provide a hint for this particular challenge. Now as I go there, someone apparently thought it was interesting or handy to write down the access code to the dorm on the wall here. I hope there's no windows here, or that might pose quite the security risk. Now Minty, she has a game and she would like us to play that old game, and so we're going to do that. But just as before, as I mentioned previously, some of the presentations at KringleCon Security Conference are actually very useful to help out with these kinds of challenges, and one of them is the presentation by Chris LG, which is Web Apps a Trailhead, and it basically talks about web application penetration testing. And if you watch this presentation, you'll basically get some useful tips on how to get past this particular hint. So we have 3 options to play the game: easy, medium and hard. And so if we say easy and we buy items, it's basically the idea is basically we need to cover this distance in a certain amount of time, but there's all kinds of things that'll happen obviously down the road as we travel, and so I don't want to spend all that time and all the frustration doing that. I want to skip right to the end. So to do that, for the easy option, all the parameters are basically set in the URL here. So if we change the distance covered to the value that we need, which is 8,000, you'll see if we submit that URL what happens with the distance remaining. It jumps to 0, and so the next iteration we just press go and we won the game. Now for the next difficulty level, medium, I'll go and open up, inspect this element, and you'll notice that for each of the difficulty levels it actually has a comment in the HTML, and that comment says that the easy option is possibly vulnerable to URL parameter manipulation, which we already did, and the medium version or the medium difficulty is less easy to exploit because the parameters have moved to the body and we're now using post requests. So knowing that, let's select medium, let's just buy the defaults, and let's now look for where that, let's select inspect so we get to the right section here, and let's open up this status container, because in the status container we'll have the same kind of information as we had previously in the URL for the easy challenge, for the easy difficulty. So we now have a distance parameter here defined on that input field. So if we change that value again to 8,000 and make it a bit smaller so we can see what's going on, and we press go, those are going to be submitted. That's going to be what results in our distance dropping down to 0 and us winning again. So that is that. Let's see, we made it. Yes, have you played with the key grinder in my room? That's interesting. It turns out if you have a good image of a key, you can physically copy it. Maybe you see someone hopping around with a key here on campus. Sometimes you can find it in the network tab of the browser console. Deviant has a great talk on it on this year's con as well. Exactly as before, where we talked about Chris LG's, or I referenced Chris LG's Web Apps, a Trailhead presentation, Deviant also has a fantastic presentation on using an image of a key to actually make a physical copy of that key. So that seems to be something we might be able to use in our next challenge, it sounds like. So first of all, let's head into that room to check out the key grinder, and apparently there's someone that runs away, so let's follow him first. That key grinder isn't going anywhere, and we end up in a closet that has no doors but it seems to have a lock on the wall. Okay, so we need a key for that, and it looks like our friend who scurries away here seems to be carrying a key on his belt, it seems. So one of the things that Minty said is, well, look in the network tab, or I can just inspect the element for that specific div, and I can see if it has an image assigned to it, which it does. I can then, I think, right click, copy the link. I'll just reuse this tab here and open that image, and that is a pretty high resolution image with an image of a key. So it looks like we'll be able to potentially use that to make a copy. But let's check out that grinder now. So click on that grinder. I don't need this anymore. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possible values that we can enter. So I'll just select a few, see what that does, and then cut. And that gives me an image of a key with that specific template, that specific series of cuts in there. So looks like we need to copy that key that we found earlier, hanging on. Looks like it's named Krampus, so I'm thinking Krampus has something to do with his name. And so this key is what we need to copy. Now, the way that I've solved it, I'm going to do it all on this particular presentation here. Well, I'll just show you how I did it initially. Is I didn't watch Devin Olam's talk, and I learned a valuable lesson in doing so, or in not doing so. But the way I did it is basically I took that key image and I figured, well, let's draw even lines on there, and let's see if we start off with the first cut and I would consider that to be 1. Let's evenly space all those lines and let's see where we end up. And what I noticed is, well, this first cut seems to be 1, then the second and the third is going to be 2, then the last one is going to align, or the one before last is going to align with that as well, and then this, based on my lines and not even looking at the templates that Devin provides, is it would have been 4, which is not correct. So if I go back to the templates, and you'll get that GitHub repository link if you look at the presentation. You have 2 interesting pieces of information: key measurements, which will definitely tell you something about how deep each of these cuts can be and where they can be on the key. So that's definitely useful. But more importantly, we have the key decoding files, which basically give you a transparent PNG file, which allows you to overlay that on the image of the key and gives you the full and half cuts on how deep those cuts should be. Now, first of all, if we want to use these, we need to identify the key type, and luckily for us, the actual top of the key here gives us a good suggestion or hint at what that would be. It looks like a Schlag, and if I look for a Schlag here, you'll notice that it's the exact same top of that key. So that looks like the correct template. Now, what I did after I noticed that my keys weren't working, or my suggested cut wasn't working, I made one edit and changed 4 to 5, and that worked. But I verified afterwards. I'm actually putting the measurements next to it, and indeed, if I align it like this, it is actually 5 and not 4. So that was my mistake. But if you don't do it like me, if you do use the presentation and you do use those templates, you should be able to make a good copy from the start, from the get-go. So you wouldn't have to do 2 attempts. So let's see if we go back to that grinder. And based on what we have here, so 1, 2, 2, 5, 2. See if we enter that into key grinder, 1, 2, 2, 5, and 2. The last one is not a cut. Go, we get a key. Unfortunately, it's not showing the image, but it should work as expected. So we download that, then we close, and we head on into that particular closet. And let's see if we can use that key on the keyhole. So click on here. This is our downloaded key. Now we do see the image there, and you'll notice though that it's actually making an image with the correct cuts. It has 1, 2, 2, then 5, then 2 again, and then a 0 over here. So choose that. Let's put that in the lock. Turn the lock, and we just got access to the steam tunnels. So that wall slides open, and we can head in. obviously we're fearless and dark steam tunnels don't scare us away, so we just barge right in and just go see what's at the end of this. And there's our mystery person who we saw scampering away earlier. So let's talk to Krampus. Hello there, I'm Krampus Holyfeld. I maintain the steam tunnels underneath Elfview and keeping all the elves warm and jolly. Awesome. So let's see, he was the one who borrowed Santa's turtle doves. And the reason why is because someone left scraps of paper near the fireplace, and that is obviously a fire hazard. So he sent the turtle doves there to fetch those paper scraps. Okay, so we just got a whole bunch of additional objective information here. That's fine. So he wants to gain our trust, and he's asking us to help him with a Frido Sleigh challenge or contest. And so that is going to be something that we do next time. So first thing that I'm going to do though is I'm going to copy his name into my badge so we can actually end challenge number 7. So objectives, get access to the steam tunnels, Krampus Holyfeld, submit, and that is the correct answer. So that is it for this episode. In the next episode we'll be helping out Krampus with his contest, but for now, wish you all the best, have a great day, goodbye.